I remember me and this girl, as we're sitting in her dad's Cybertruck, she looks over at me and says, Baba, do you want to like, go to the back seat? It's pretty roomy back there. And I remember looking at her super confused because I never driven a Cybertruck, nor have I been in the back seat. But then me and her, we ended up going back there, and let's just say what ended up happening was pretty illegal. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Baba, and welcome back to another insane, but I gotta say crazy story. So if you guys don't know, Cybertrucks recently came out. Well, actually, they've been announced for a long time now, but Cybertrucks have been something that's a really popular topic. And me, when it was announced back in 2019, I remember I thought this thing was crazy. No joke, thinking that an electric truck could be a possible thing literally blows my mind. Obviously, I wasn't surprised by it actually becoming a real thing, but I didn't think it was going to be affordable to anyone, to the public. I thought it was going to be that one thing that's really rare to see, which I mean, nowadays it is super rare to see. So if you guys have ever been in a Cybertruck, comment down below. But I remember me thinking that I was never going to see one. I remember there was one day back in 2019 when I actually had a crazy experience with one. And it all starts off back when I was 18 years old. Well, that's when 2019 was, back when I was 18. So yeah, I remember I was one time hanging out with my friends and we were all just driving our cars around together. Me at this time, I only had a Toyota Celica GT, and this was my first car I ever had. And I remember I was driving around one day with my friends until one day we ended up going to this car meet. Now back then when I was 18, since I had a car, I remember I would always go to these car meets. Don't get me wrong, my car was nothing insane, but it was good enough to go to these basic meets where basic cars would go meet up and, show off what they had. And me, I didn't really care about my car being something to flex. So I ended up going anyway, and I love seeing other people's cars. And I remember when I got there with me and my friends, we were walking around the car meet looking at different cars. And one thing I can say is that back in 2019, I remember so many people, and I mean so many car enthusiasts, hated the idea of a Cybertruck or just electric cars in general. Don't get me wrong, I think they're cool. I think it's good to save, the planet, but at the same time, it is kind of weird. Driving a car without an engine in it, I don't know how much I would really trust that. And still to this day, I still believe that. But going on, I remember so many people there were talking smack about the Cybertruck and the whole Tesla thing. And well, one thing led to another. I remember as a bunch of people were just talking about it, a girl ends up pulling up to the car meet. Now, girls coming to the car meet was nothing new. Okay, usually they would come with their boyfriends or come with their own car that they've been working on themselves for a long time. But this one girl that showed up came with something super unique, and that was the Cybertruck, which is honestly mind-blowing because back in 2019, like I said, it was almost mission impossible to find one of these things on the road. But I remember this girl pulled up, and I remember all the people that hated Elon Musk and his whole Tesla thing were amazed by the Cybertruck, but not amazed as if they liked it, amazed that a girl was driving a Cybertruck to a car meet full of gas-powered cars that were modified, but still not as fast as the Cybertruck. But I remember this girl ended up pulling up, and she ended up parking somewhat near my car. And when she got out of the Cybertruck, I remember I ended up going to my car and opening it because I wanted to put my jacket inside since it was getting kind of hot. And this hot girl that comes out of the Cybertruck looks at me and says, "Oh, is this your car?" Yeah. Why? "Oh, nothing. It just looks really good." "Wait, do you know what this car is?" "Well, yeah, of course, silly. It's a Toyota Celica GT." Honestly, when she ended up saying my car's name without any help, I was in major shock. And that's when I looked at her and said, "Oh, how do you know what my car is?" "Oh, well, you see, this was my dad's first car, and honestly, he always talks about it. So every time I see one, I just think of him." At that point, it made sense how she knew about it, but at the same time, that's when I felt like I had the perfect opportunity to ask her, "So, you're the one who brought the Cybertruck, huh?" "Oh, yeah, I don't know. I felt kind of weird bringing it, but honestly, I just felt like it just made sense. It's a rare car, so I thought people could actually give it a chance and look at it." I remember I ended up basically asking her to see the car myself, and me and her, we ended up going inside her Cybertruck. And when we sat down inside, I remember she was showing me all the cool stuff that it had, all the options, and how the whole thing was basically built. One thing I was amazed about with the Cybertruck was the sky roof, but other than that, I'm not gonna lie, it just seemed like a really big Tesla, which makes sense because it is made by the same people that made Tesla, but you get what I'm saying. To be honest, the car was definitely made of plastic too. It wasn't, a heavy metal American vehicle that most people love, but seeing, the Cybertruck, I will admit, was pretty cool. And I remember as I got in the car, me and her were sitting in there talking to each other, a lot of my friends ended up going to the front of the vehicle and taking photos of it. I remember the girl that was sitting beside me in the driver's seat, the one who brought the Cybertruck, was feeling really good at this moment. I remember she even looked at me and said, "Oh my goodness, people are taking photos of it. I think people are liking it. What do you think?" Yeah, I think they might. And at that moment, for some reason, I ended up pulling out my phone and going on Snapchat. And when I ended up clicking on my friend's stories about the Cybertruck, it was all about them making fun of it. So many people were hating on the Cybertruck to the point where I remember she ended up glimpsing over at my phone and saw how much hate it was getting. betting on other people's stories. And that's when she looked at me and said, oh, people really don't like it, do they? Well, I mean, I don't know. You gotta understand, like, Tesla's not really popular around the car enthusiasts nowadays. And like, also like electric vehicles just aren't really, I guess, like the norm yet. I remember this girl really liked that I was trying to, like, you know, basically make her feel better. And that's when this girl ended up saying something insane where she looks over at me and says, well, honestly, like at this point, I might as well just take this thing out of here. What are you doing later? Oh, to be honest, probably after this, I'm just gonna go home. Why? Oh, like, do you want to, like, I don't know, go get a burger or something? Yeah, sure. Okay, cool. Do you want to leave now? Because I don't really feel comfortable here anymore. Yeah, sure, we can go. Okay, cool. We can drop your car off at your place and we can go with the Cybertruck. Really? Yeah, I don't see why not. At that moment, I was sold. I remember I ended up getting out of the Cybertruck. I ended up going inside my own car and I ended up driving it back to my place as she followed behind me. I remember how cool it was driving in front of a Cybertruck and people just staring at her driving that thing while I'm just in front of her, my little Toyota Celica GT. It was honestly pretty cool though, looking back and seeing that thing every turn I made. But I remember when we got to my place, I ended up parking my car and I ended up getting inside her car. And once I sat inside the passenger seat, she looked at me and said, oh, I mean, do you want to try driving it? I'm allowed to do that? Well, yeah, I don't see why not. Okay, sure, if I'm allowed. I remember I ended up going to the driver's side and I ended up basically sitting and driving the Cybertruck to a burger joint that was really popular around my area. Now, actually, fun fact, the burger joint we went to was actually really popular. If you guys have ever seen the show Riverdale, Pop's Diner, that's basically located around the area where I live at. So I remember me and this girl, we ended up actually going there. It's kind of funny though, pulling that thing up to Pop's Diner. It was actually kind of insane, but going on with the story, I remember as we ended up going to the burger joint, we ended up sitting down together and we started eating burgers. And that's when I had to ask her the question where I said to her, so like, I have a question. Do you like own the Cybertruck or like what do you do? Because that thing's pretty expensive. Oh, no, it's my dad's. I'm not gonna lie. My dad works with Elon on like stuff and I don't know, he ended up getting early access to the Cybertruck. So he just ends up bringing it home and driving it. But to be honest, he prefers his Porsche a lot more. So I just drive the Cybertruck so I can, you know, not pay for gas. Oh, I mean, yeah, it makes sense. Gas prices do suck right now, is what I told her. And me and her continue eating. Now, the thing that I just drove this girl's dad's Cybertruck was really mind-blowing. But what ends up happening next, I think was extremely illegal. Because I remember me and this girl, we ended up going back into her dad's Cybertruck and I ended up driving it to a lookout point that me and her wanted to go sit at. And this lookout point that we went to was really popular throughout my high school for being the spot to go do the Devil's Tango. But I remember I ended up basically taking her there, and when we got there, me and her just sat there talking about life. She started talking about how her family's like really filthy rich ever since, you know, some Bitcoin thing ended up lifting off, and she works with like Elon and like all this crazy stuff. I don't know. Honestly, all I heard from her mouth was that she was in a really rich family. And for me at the time, well, I wasn't really a YouTuber or a content creator or really anything. So the only thing I could say was, yeah, just graduated high school. That's basically it. Kind of lame, I know, but at the same time, this girl chose to hang out with me, okay? I didn't choose to hang out with her. But I remember after having a touchy conversation, she ended up becoming more vulnerable with me, and that's when she said to me, oh, like, do you want to go sit in the back? It's really nice back there. Yeah, sure. And that's when me and this girl ended up going to the back of her dad's Cybertruck, and we ended up doing the Devil's Tango in the back of it. No joke, it was so nice, and don't get me wrong, like, I would 100% do it again, because looking out the glass roof while doing the Devil's Tango is one of the best things ever. But I remember after a while, we ended up being in that Cybertruck almost all night, to the point where we passed down the back, and the next morning, I remember this girl ended up waking up and freaking out because she stayed overnight at this lookout point with me in her dad's Cybertruck. So I remember we ended up both getting ready, and we ended up driving back to my place so she could drop me off. And this girl, she was hauling it in that car. No joke, the speed of the Cybertruck is actually super dangerous. And knowing that thing only takes batteries is super insane. But I remember we ended up finally getting back to my place, and she ended up dropping me off. And honestly, before she dropped me off, she gave me a kiss and wanted to see me again. But I'm not gonna lie, I totally forgot her name after she dropped me off, and I basically never actually ended up seeing her again. Funny enough, I wonder what she's doing nowadays. But if you guys think this story is totally fake, then just follow for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys.